All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Manaverse Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Traplin, and I have with me one Alan Blakeborough. He is, well, I'm going to let him introduce himself because we got quite the tale, quite the history to go through, and we're going to be talking about secondhandgeek.com, a brand new marketplace that's going to be helping out store owners and former and current hobbyists who want to switch up some of the things that they are selling and buying and trading. So welcome to the show, Alan. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm glad that we could put this all together, especially now since things are like in the middle of the launch period for this new
Yes,
marketplace.
we're just announced last week that we're launching. The reception has been really good, both on the various social media stuff, and we've actually gone out to a number of stores physically over the last couple of weeks. Actually went to our first Warhammer Rogue Trader tournament this past weekend. So talking to people.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm really excited to talk about this new platform and really explain and explore what's going on with this thing. But as we were talking about before we started hitting the record button, I wanna go back in time a little bit and
Okay.
got to go into the past and go into your origin story. How did you get into this crazy world of hobbyists and gaming and board games and models and all this
So
stuff?
I'm really old. I was one of those original Dungeons and Dragons players back in the late 70s, early 80s. So went through all the D&D stuff when it was little booklets. Then got out of the D&D, went off to college, served in the military, and then when I got out, I started opening up fencing schools. I'm a competitive, used to be a competitive Olympic fencer, and a bunch of my students were like, "Hey, you used to play D&D. Do you play Magic? Do you do anything with miniature wargaming?" And come to find out that, by the time the late 90s were around, the gaming industry became this huge thing in the world. And it was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. Owned a coffee shop at the time in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then started adding gaming merchandise in there so people could have coffee, sit down, enjoy gaming and stuff. And that basically then spun off into opening and running 9 gaming stores over the last 25 years. Went through, basically putting a place in a strip mall, having one manager running it, and then having customers say, "Wow, I would like one of these in my town." So we'd raise the money and then open one in another town. So had a number of stores in the Carolinas, and really enjoyed, running them, watching, people young and old get together, play the games. And then last year, went and put together a company in the tax space. I joke around that I'm a recovering accountant. And in that aspect, learned a whole lot about the platforms that we're currently using today, whether it be Uber or Airbnb. We made one for taxes. And then about 4 months ago, somebody was joking around with me as I was listing stuff on eBay, why there wasn't a marketplace, that served the gaming community in the same way that my marketplace served the small business and taxpayers. So we were like, okay, me and the staff sat down. A bunch of them are also gamers. And we're like, okay, well, we could do this. Took the same ideas that we did with Tax Titans and then came up with a way that basically it was similar to what TCG Player did in the trading card game space. But what we were doing here as a spin is we were creating a way for people to be able to make a revenue stream off of their customers who are selling stuff online. As a store owner, eBay and Kickstarter were kind of the bane of my existence because people would buy and get great deals on eBay or Kickstarter and then come into my store and sit down and, spend 4 or 5 hours there, not spend a lot of money and then leave. And as every store owner knows, you only have a limited amount of retail space to put new products out, which has the highest margin. And there's basically no way for me to, take everybody's used stuff that they have sitting in their closet or their garage and fill up my store. I'm not a pawn shop and I'm not a flea market. But, I serve all those customers and provide a place for them to play. So the marketplace allows us to be able to say, hey, when your customers are using the marketplace, everything that they sell over the marketplace, we're going to give the store owners a 1% rebate on what is sold there. So if somebody sells, say, $1,000, and okay, it's like, all right, from that aspect that they wind up making $10 to do that, then you multiply that by 100, 200 customers that they have. It could be paying the electric bill 1 month. It could be paying a month of rent. Depending on how wide or how much the store owner has as far as a customer base. It could be something small. It could be something, that's actually got impact.
Describe the marketplace and the customers and the people and how you're growing this thing out. Like what was the process of launching this new venture, and how are you expanding the reach and all of that fun stuff?
So the process was basically creating a two-sided marketplace, in which you created a very low friction, very easy way for the gamers to get onto the site, and make a free profile, so they have to pay to be on. And then also for anybody that's getting rid of their stuff, for them to be able to sign up, list the stuff, and have it not cost anything for them to list it. Then we customized and broke down, kind of like what TCG Player does for cards. We did the same thing for other games. For instance, we'll take Warhammer. We said, okay, if I'm buying a Warhammer model, I want to know, okay, is it still in the box? Is it out of the box? And all the pieces are there. If somebody basically, put it together, was it put together well? Was it look like it was put together by a 3-year-old? There are some people that, may be great at their profession, but they're not modelers. If it's painted, is it painted to like, Golden Demon standards, or is it, painted by like somebody with a crayon who's 4 years old? And for people that are selling and buying, that's kind of important. If they're looking to buy role-playing games, okay, is it brand new? Is there pages missing? Does it look like my dog took it and ate it for his homework? That kind of stuff. One of the things we just added last week that we think is really unique is for people that paint miniatures. There's a way for them to basically create a profile, and then we have a category for painting minis. So if someone's like, hey, I'm going to charge you $10 to paint a figure for, say, a D&D thing, or I want an entire army painted, then there's ways for painters to do that. As we all know in the gaming space, 3D printing is a big thing now. So we created a category for 3D printers. As long as a person is doing original work and they're not just copying somebody's, like a Games Workshop or a War Machine Hordes or anything like that, they can sell their stuff also, because there's really not a marketplace for all these 3D printers to be able to go, okay, this is where all the gamers at. That's kind of the stuff that I like to print and do, whether it be terrain, for the, playing Dungeons and Dragons, or doing it for 40K or Age of Sigmar. There's now a place for them to basically hang their shingle and kind of advertise what they're doing. And then at the completion of it, so at the end of it, when you select something you want to buy, it sends an email to the folks in the platform. They can say, yes, I'm going to sell it. No, I'm not going to sell it. And then all the transactions, everything are done through PayPal. So, any of the bad actors that are out there, if you send the money in and you don't get the stuff, then you can file a complaint and PayPal will refund your money. We have a lot of experience doing this. I've had a trade group on Facebook for over 9 years. It started with 0 people and has now got over 17,000. The moderators and stuff that we have on there have done a great job over the last 9 years, which has caused it to grow. We basically grow anywhere from 30 to 40 new people a week on the trade groups. Between, I think, all the trade groups on Facebook that deal with just wargaming miniatures and stuff, there's literally over about 100,000. So we know the demand is there. We know that every store owner over there sweats about paying the bills. I've never met a store owner that went, oh my God, I have so much money, I don't need any more customers. So I think from that standpoint, it'll work well. Our goal is to create and support organized play. So Magic, Pokemon, those companies do a great job supporting people with like Friday Night Magic and their pre-releases and stuff. There is nothing in the wargaming world that supports and gives organized play all the way down to the store owner. Games Workshop was really great about 20 years ago, having what were called Rogue Trader tournaments, in which they gave you missions, they gave you prize support, they sent you judges, and that was great. That program has been discontinued for a couple of decades now. So one of the ways that we're looking at doing it is we want to certify judges for things like Warhammer, and then provide another 1% of the sales goes to supporting the organized play, whether it be, coming up with prize support for the owners, coming up with things like, hey, you won painting services, and we're promoting the painters that are on the site, and saying, okay, we'll pay you, but this person, won, this month's prize or whatever. So that's kind of how we plan on getting the word out there. We think that organized play has existed well and done well for the gaming community. People are looking to do stuff and, want to engage with other people, especially after COVID. Everybody's saying that, the gaming industry and physical face-to-face contact is going to continue to increase. So we want to make it easy for people to be able to sell their stuff in a marketplace that actually supports the hobbies and the places that they are actually gaming at. eBay is a great company, but in the 25 years that I owned gaming stores, eBay never wrote me a check, never helped me pay an electric bill or pay the rent for my local gaming store. So
Yeah, it's been a challenging ecosystem to navigate, and the evolution of the space over time that's been a perpetual challenge of people buying their products somewhere else and then coming to the third space of the game store to enjoy that product. That's
right.
been like a thing forever. So I like the idea of having a platform that tries to mitigate that at least a little bit and rewarding people. Like if
Hmm.
the store is saying, okay, well, I'm going to refer my customers to this group, like you said, the trade group on Facebook, if they had a way of, slightly taking a cut of every transaction that you helped refer to them,
Hmm.
like it's essentially what's happening here. That would make it at least it would at least facilitate the continued existence of that game store, which it would be a nice thing. I would think most of the community would probably appreciate that if they could manage that. So I think the idea of having a marketplace where people can do this, that's not eBay, but it's not TCG Player. There's some that's for the rest of this massive hobby, this
Right.
this gigantic thing. I think is a really great idea in terms of pricing. This is one of the things that I'm curious about. Is it more like eBay or is it more like TCG Player, where TCG Player has essentially like they become the benchmark for a lot of stores in terms of pricing their products, right? Like they are the market. They set the market in a lot of ways. But eBay is much more of a, well, what do you think you can get for it? All right, throw some. Hopefully you whatever the auction ends up, or you put the buy it now price at, whatever you feel like is fair, and then you go for it. How much guidance is there in that, or is it completely up to the person listing their thing to say, well, this is the price I want?
So right now it's almost like the buy it at this price as far as eBay. Ours is not an auction type platform. And the evolution that we want to see happen is that for the first couple of months, everybody says, okay, these are the items that I have, and it's listed up here, buy it at this price. Now, the nice thing about our site is if you're having a conversation with somebody about the price or the condition of the item that you're looking to buy, that stays in a public forum that's attached to that product. So much like in the Facebook groups, if I'm having a conversation back and forth about, okay, you were asking for 50, I've got 45, and then you come back and go, well, these pieces are missing, and then I want only to buy it for 40. And I said, well, I don't want to sell it for 40, but thank you. That conversation stays there. So the next person that comes in has more information as far as that product and what your price point is to sell that item. Now, what we want to do is we're building right now and integrating a way so that once a month that we have kind of a flea market, kind of like eBay, where people then go, okay, I have 10 items that I have listed in my inventory. 3 of these items I just want to get rid of, and I don't care if I got $1 from them. I don't care if I get $5 from them. and you just throw them up into the absolute auction aspect of the secondhand geek, and then you just clear them out. One of the other, things that's better for us instead of eBay, if I want to have stuff listed in perpetuity until they sell on eBay, then I'm looking at having to buy a store. And in eBay, if I want to have a store, the least amount that I can spend is $5, and then it just goes up from there. On our site, you could have 100 items on there, and it'll be free for you the entire time. So for the individual who has a massive Warhammer collection, that's great. For a store owner that wants to go, hey, I've got some vintage gaming material sitting on my shelves, and I don't want it to be a museum, I can list the stuff up there, and I'm not worried about, the stuff being on the marketplace and you're sending me an invoice $20 a month to be able to have it listed up there. It's great because literally it just sits there for free until it sells. So for us and for the gamers and the game store owners, we think that's great. We also believe that we'll get enough feedback so that, unlike eBay, if I sent them a thing going, hey, I would like to, have this functionality exist, you're not going to hear about it. I talked to a bunch of employees at a store this past weekend that have told me the transition from TCG Player over to the eBay marketplace when it was sold hasn't been to the benefit of the game store owners. My understanding is the eBay customer service is not as on point as it was when it was handled just directly by TCG Player.
That's not surprising. Generally, the bigger the company gets, the less one-on-one time you can really expect to have with somebody who can actually address your problem. Like try to get a hold of somebody in Google to try and figure out your thing that's going wrong with your ad platform. Like that's a challenge. It can take some time. So yeah, I'm not surprised that eBay's dropping the ball in terms of that the customer service aspect of things. I am curious about so like you said that you can list your product, the thing you don't get charged until you sell. That's when the transaction fee occurs and all of that, and that's great. Do you have any plans for, like, if I'm a store owner and this sounds really cool, can I list everything? Can I just sell my whole store here? Like, how does that work?
You can sell your whole store. The only thing that you're looking at is a 5% overhead fee as the stuff sells. So there's a store that we're talking with now where the owner has made a life change, and they're going to be basically closing their doors and liquidating everything. And from their standpoint, and having done that with stores that I had up in Charlotte, North Carolina, I was like, look, you can go and list all this stuff on eBay, and that's great. I said, you're going to be paying 15% of that. I said, or you can try to use us first. If it works for your time frame, then you're only spending 5%. And in this person's instance, they're not looking to liquidate it within 30 or 60 days. They're basically closing the shop, putting all the material and merchandise in their garage. So from his standpoint, saving that 10% from an eBay standpoint works for him because he really doesn't want to pay a monthly fee to have a store listed on eBay, and he doesn't want to keep having to relist the stuff after a 7-day auction. So this for him is the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I was wondering if there would be is there going to be sort of an integration at some point to be like, I've got a POS, I run my store on Shopify, for example. Can I just have my items automatically listed? Is there a way to do that at some point in the future? Is that a thing that's going to happen, or will everything be manual? You say, I want this category to be listed. Okay, employee number 1, make sure this thing gets up on Secondhand Geek today, right? Like, how's that going to work? Or is that part of the plan at some point?
That is part of the roadmap. So part of the roadmap is that you would have an API integration with eBay, with Shopify, that if you had items on either our platform or another platform, that you'd be able to just transmit them and send them over and go, okay, I want this thing listed on multiple platforms. In the social media space, in the experience that we've had with Tax Titans, I'll make a post, and there's enough types of companies out there where when I want that post to go on social media, it automatically sends it to Instagram, sends it to LinkedIn, sends it to Facebook. So the API and the concept of that is already out there. We just need to make it so that it connects with our marketplace to all the other places that the store owners are already currently selling their stuff at. One of the biggest things we would like to do, of course, is to be able to have an API that takes everybody from our Facebook groups and transfers them over to the platform. I had 17,000 people on the platform tomorrow. That'd be great. From that aspect, yeah. We think the biggest bang for the buck, though, is getting the word out to the store owners through, podcasts such as yourself to say, hey, look, you have the trust of your customers. You're providing that space. Your customers want to see you succeed, but they only make so much money, so they're not going to be making donations to your brick and mortar store. But if they're already selling their stuff, if they're already selling it to their friends and they want a broader market of other people and help other stores, then this would be a great thing for them to champion, for them to be the cheerleaders, to basically say, folks, hey, Secondhand Geek is out there. We have collateral as far as cards and merchandise. We're in the process. We own a bunch of laser CO2 cutters. So we're making, Secondhand Geek rulers and stuff for wargaming, tokens and stuff like that to, give out as far as, prizes, tchotchkes type of things to, promote the site and get people to go, hey, let's get behind a marketplace that is literally supporting the game and the hobby that we all do, whether we're a war gamer or we like board games, or if we're doing trading card games or role-playing games. We all need, facilities to do this because, depending on my dorm room or my apartment or my house, I sometimes I can have 5-6 people over. It's not like I'm going to be having 24 people over to run, a Warhammer tournament. It's not like I'm going to be able to have, 15-20 people over for Friday Night Magic. So I think over time this will have impact. My one vow is that we don't sell to eBay for $300 million like TCG did. Because I mean, quite frankly, they're just about making the, what they make last year, $9 billion in revenue, getting 15% of items. So they do 2 billion transactions a day.
Kind of crazy thinking
Yep.
about how far it's come and how big the market really is now at this point in time. Like, especially if you think about what it was like in the 80s and the 90s.
Oh my God. I mean, I remember having just the little booklets. I mean, the hardcover D&D books came out and you'd have thought people were like, reprinting the Bible. It was like, oh my God, a new book, Fiend Folio. Oh my God, another book. Now, I had been out of it for 20 some odd years. And then, I had fencing students coming up and going, oh, have you ever heard of this game Warhammer? Have you ever heard of this thing called Magic the Gathering? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was like, I blinked and suddenly somebody made a $25 billion a year industry in tabletop gaming. It was amazing. So.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, especially like, and it's been a very exciting year. Hopefully the exciting, and I say that with air quotes in some ways, because it's also been a very tumultuous year for the game industry in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just amazed the folks that have stuck it out that survived the pandemic. I mean, nobody who has a game store is considered to be an essential business. Some people did a great job pivoting during the pandemic for having pickups for their store, trying to do stuff online in a virtual setting so that people still were able to communicate with their friends and people that they gamed with. But you never realize how much you miss or need that personal interaction with somebody until it's gone.
Yeah. The 2 years of the pandemic really highlighted how important it was to have that. It's face to face. This is great, right? Technology is awesome for this kind of thing, but like being able to sit across from somebody on the other side of the table and play a real physical activity and experience with them is it's important. It's like vital to us as humans to be able to do that. Like we cannot survive on digital interactions alone, right? Or at least we become different people in that regard. And it's it's really nice to see this resurgence. Like you said that at the beginning, right? Like there is this really big push, this renaissance in a lot of ways that I think is reflecting in the growth of the game industry in general, is that people want to have those experiences, and more people in the mainstream are discovering how important it is and how much fun it is, and how, it's not this nerdy, geeky, this is only for certain kinds of people kind of activity like it was, a couple of decades ago. Now it's more, anyone can really enjoy this, which is great. And I think I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to see what happens in the next couple of years. I'm generally optimistic. I know it's been kind of not the greatest past 6 months for a lot of store owners, but hopefully things are going on an upward trajectory, despite a lot of the troubles and challenges and weird decisions that some of the major players are making at the moment. But yeah, and I think the Secondhand Geek has a really interesting role to play going forward. I think this could be something that a lot of store owners will benefit from, and I think if we can, kind of spread the word as to like how this fits into their ecosystem in a way, I think it's a really useful tool that more store owners should be getting on board with. In terms of like, okay, so what's your plan for this launch? How has it been going so far? What do you have lined up for the next like 3 months or so?
So the first week, we just got done with the first week. We had over 100 people sign up as far as just regular customers. Those people, every one of the people that signed up and put a store that they play at. So from that aspect, we wound up with 100 stores that basically we know, okay, these people game at. So those folks, if they sell anything, those store owners, without really having to do anything, have wound up making money. So now we're doing the outreach directly to the stores, going, hey, we have the Secondhand Geek Marketplace. One of your customers, said that they played at your store. If they sell anything, we're going to cut you a check. If you'd like more information, let us know. The other thing that we're doing for the next 3 months is going to the Gen Cons, the Dragon Cons, the local Comic Cons in every state here in the Southeast. I myself and one of my partners are avid Warhammer players, so we go to things like Adepticon, LVO, Nova Open, where you'll have 500, 600, 1,000 people playing those games. So we plan out handing out, complimentary rulers and markers for people to have. Basically just getting the word out there. Most of your gamers are avid IT people, so we're hoping at the same time through social media and things like this podcast, the word gets out there that people are like, hey, okay, I can play my part in trying to make the gaming industry more mainstream than it currently is. I can help my store owner in helping him pay his bills by not really incurring anything more than I'm currently doing. And if I'm afraid of kind of doing the whole eBay thing, here is another way for me to be able to sell stuff and make sure that the trust factor is there. And then from that standpoint, we're hoping that, the store owners who have tried to figure things out on their own, people who have good ideas, or people that are think, hey, this would be a great way for you to promote it. We're always open to having, ideas thrown to us. There's a bunch of Warhammer podcast and YouTube channels that we plan on supporting and advertising on. The only folks that I think are going to not like what we're doing are the people who make the new products, because they make money on selling stuff new. And the more that we allow the gamers to basically keep and sell stuff secondhand, that sometimes may be viewed as, preventing people from buying newer stuff. But, it's one of those things where it's like, it's already happening on eBay. So it's not like, we're reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, it's more like you're hoping to divert some of that activity that's already occurring in that customer base of every single game store. Basically, there's some portion of the community that's buying and selling horizontally. They're not necessarily coming to the store for everything that they need, and you're just moving that over. You're not necessarily hoping to divert, new sales or gaming dollars that they would otherwise spend with the store. You're just hoping to take some of that stuff, put it on a new platform, and give them a check.
Yep.
Give them give them a reason to promote it because they actually get an incentive to keep it within the ecosystem. Whereas eBay and TCG Player are just kind of out the door. You get no benefit at all as the store owner to facilitate it for the most part, unless you are actively selling on those platforms. But then again, fees.
Fees upon fees. And then in January, we are launching the International Wargaming League. That is going to basically be just like what Magic the Gathering did as far as having a pro circuit. We're going to do that with the wargaming space. And the thing that's nice about that is we're developing the back end of our site that basically allows people that are playing in their local gaming store to be part of an international league that will rank them in an ELO ranking system, like everybody's used to in the video game world. So it's one of those things where I could be playing in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm getting my ranking as far as where I stand with everybody else who's playing, say, Warhammer 40K in the entire world. And I don't have to just go to big tournaments like an Adepticon or a Nova or a LVO in order to have my game count. And the fact that, okay, there's, actually a judge there. There's actually rules that, basically are universal. So I'm not, worried that, okay, I played at this one place and now the rules at a different store are different. So. And then for the store owners, the thing that's nice is we provide the training for the judges. So they're like, hey, I've got a volunteer. He's an avid guy that loves Warhammer. We're going to sign him up to be a judge, much in the way that you had, level 1, level 2, level 3 judges in the beginning for Magic. Same thing. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just doing something in a miniature wargaming space that doesn't exist, that exists well and works well in the trading card game industry.
That's interesting. How are you going to deliver the judge training?
The judge rating is going to be basically kind of a tier 1, 2, and 3. It's going to be basically a questionnaire of the standard rules for whatever that game is, whether it be Flames of War, or Age of Sigmar, or Games Workshop. You'll have a database of, okay, this person has passed the test. When someone is submitting their results, there's then not only who they are and who their opponent was, but who the judge was that quote unquote refereed the game. And that if they wanted to be able to give any notes as to, hey, this guy was a great judge, this guy was horrible, type of thing, so that we, from a customer service standpoint, get to maintain the judges pool so that, not only are we certifying the people, but we're doing continuing education, so to speak. Being a recovering accountant and CPA, I always have to go through annual training to make sure that, I know all the tips and tricks in the accounting space. So we're basically doing the same type of thing where someone doesn't pass and become a judge once, and then they got, basically the ring to rule over everybody, as a judge without having any type of, way for someone to be able to counsel them or keep them in check.
Cool. Yeah, I like the idea of facilitating judges. That is a ongoing challenge, right? And anyone who has tried to manage organized play knows how difficult it can be to find somebody who fill that role as the judge that you can rely on, that you can afford, that everything lines up so that all makes sense. And yeah, it's interesting to think that doesn't really exist anymore. Like I'm normally a Magic player. I've played Warhammer. Yep. I used to play when I was younger, but that was just me, my cousins, casually, just for fun. Nothing crazy. I personally never really went into a store to play Warhammer in a semi-competitive kind of way. So I never really got that experience of like what it's like to go to an F&M. I know what Magic is like, that kind of situation. And it's interesting to think that Games Workshop, given how they've been around forever, basically. It almost as long as the hobby exists. Like
they are the ones that created it more. Yep.
Yeah. Like they're kind of foundational, and they I guess they did do that in the past, but they've moved away from that model. And it's I think it's encouraging. It's interesting to see what that'll look like in the future. And I'm excited to see more of that, because I really like the idea of hosting. I like the idea of facilitating. I think that's what a lot of game store owners also enjoy. I think, they like the idea of having that control over their space, bringing people in to enjoy the thing that they love as well. But part of that is the organization and the referees and the rule standards and that sort of thing. So all of that is part of the structure. But largely, you're on your own for the most part to figure that out. And it's really nice. It's nice to see that at least one organization is out there trying to make that a little bit easier, even if it's not the publisher or the manufacturer necessarily. Yeah, I think that'll be a nice tool for game store owners in the near future once that gets rolling.
Yep. One of the things that we want to do as an organization is provide resources to the game store owners. 3 of the guys that are part of Secondhand Geek have owned stores in the past or currently own stores. And 99% of your store owners are one-man bands. So they deal and they need volunteers within the various games that are played in their store to help them promote organized play. So one of our goals is that this database will allow them to go, okay, in my store I've got 3 or 4 certified judges that are held accountable that I don't have to worry about arranging or trying to set them up to judge somebody's game, that they can do this all over this site. And I'm running the benefit of having a facility that people can come in and play and purchase items here. And I'm providing a safe space for them to do that. And there is another organization that is training the folks, making sure they stay up to date on the rules and how stuff is going. And for lack of a better term, they're also my ad hoc, HR department, making sure that, I don't have 2 customers that got pissed off by a judge and now they're going to the game store, 2 towns over. So
yeah, I think that'll be a big help going forward. And I am curious about you mentioned the 3D printers. That's also another area that has exploded, and in some ways, like a lot of technology, people got really excited about it. They think it was going to be this transformative thing that was going to change the way games are done. And it hasn't really done that, but it has changed things, right? It has become part of the ecosystem.
Yep.
I'm interested in what that necessarily looks like. So if somebody wants to list their 3D printer on the site, in a sense, are you saying that they would be able to say, I'll design your thing? Do you send me a brief on what you want created and I'll send you the piece? Or is it more like I've got these 3D model files, right? Like I've got these creations that I've created. Would you like one? Like, how does that work as somebody who's a 3D modeler?
So right now we just have the category for 3D printers. So from that aspect, if they either have the file that they're looking to sell, so someone can make it on their own, they could list that and put a price to it. If they already manufacture the stuff and they've got stuff there and they want to sell the finished product, they can do that as well. Again, stressing as long as it's original stuff. We're not, counterfeiting. We're not endorsing anything like that. I'm stealing somebody else's IP. We're not endorsing that. Or like you said, I have a 3D printer. I know how to use it. I have the free time. So if you want something made, you can contact me and, I can give you a price on making that. So those are the 3 instances, either somebody who has already got a product, someone's looking to sell a file to have someone else make the product, or someone's got an idea and they want them to come up with it. Any one of those 3, they could wind up putting on the marketplace. We're not at the current time mandating what they would do with that. We do know people like Puppets of War. I myself in the Warhammer world have seen a ton of people come up with terrain. And they love that because, playing the same sets of terrain with your buddy, day in, day out gets kind of boring sometimes. So from that aspect, from a terrain standpoint and how people play wargaming, it's kind of like Magic or Pokemon every 3 months coming out with a new set of cards. So then you have the whole thing of accessories, say in the miniature wargaming space, where you have somebody goes, okay, these are the standard Space Marines. Here are some alternate heads. Here's some alternate arms. It's new stuff, but it fits on the main game, so to speak. So you can customize a lot of the stuff, and a lot of the 3D printers are really good at doing that and coming up with alternative models for games that are out there that sometimes hasn't had a new sculpt in, say, 3 decades.
That's a really interesting area, right? because of the copyright and aspect of things. So like that again, that's not my forte. I haven't been super involved in that. I've just been on the outside seeing it, thinking it's cool because
Yeah.
I like technology. I think it's pretty neat. But I've been interested in seeing how this will develop over time, and like how does this fit into, I guess, the wargaming aspect of things. How does it work into that hobby, and how do people use this technology, right? Because again, it's one of those like weird gray areas. Like for card games, there are really good proxy makers, right? In air quotes, that can make really great, cool custom versions of a card that doesn't really exist, and it's not you're not trying to counterfeit the card, right? That's interesting, but it can very easily go into that area, right, where they can make almost the exact same version of a card that Wizards of the Coast can print
Right. Yep.
from the printing presses, right? And it's almost identical in so many ways, right? Which opens up a whole pile of questions about providence and all kinds of things like that. But the idea of like how this could fit into the way things are working, the way that it becomes this sort of service, I think it's really cool. I like the idea. I have a lot of respect for anybody who can create a really good, well detailed model and turn it into something that's physically real. I think that's really cool. So the fact that you're providing that space on the website, I think is really neat. I want to see how that goes. I feel like that could be a really cool add-on, right? If there was this thriving market of people who are creating custom terrain, like you said, or custom models and things like that, I think it'd be really interesting. And I think it would fit a perfect fit because there's nothing really, or I'm assuming that could be assuming wrong. I don't think there's anything like that out there right now for somebody to provide that service.
Right now, the only thing that really is out there is Patreon. So you have a lot
Ooh,
of
yeah.
3D modelers out there that you ask for people to subscribe to their service, and then as they're coming out with new sculpts, the people that, depending on the level of the Patreon, are getting then the products. But you're right, there isn't a marketplace for like, hey, I had in my Patreon group, I still have the files, I can still make this stuff, but everybody that's part of the Patreon got the last release. I've got 500 left over. Oh, okay, here's a marketplace that I can sell it at that is dedicated to, say, miniature wargaming. There's a whole category for that, and I really don't want to put it on eBay because I don't want to pay the fees to have it listed because I don't know whether or not it's going to sell.
For anyone who's listening right now, they're store owners. They're thinking this sounds pretty interesting. How would they get involved? What would you tell them how do they get started?
My thing is you can just go to secondhandgeek.com and literally create a profile right there. It doesn't cost anything. On there is the contact us. If they want more information, if they've got questions, they've got suggestions, right then and there. Everything's on the site. We tried to make it as we're all military guys that own Secondhand Geek, so we joke around that we try to make it as grunt proof as possible. Keep the friction down to a minimum so that it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I created the profile. I confirmed that this is my email address. Yep. Okay. I'm up and running, and, get your customers to sign on. We, download the new memberships every day. Saying we're adding stores on there. We're creating a link now that we've got a page on the main site so that anybody looking for a game store in their town, if they're getting into it or they used to be a gamer and now their kids are getting involved, that we have a link for them to be able to find the stores in their area as well.
Nice. A little extra promotion for the stores that
Yep.
are listed on the site. It's always nice. It's always important. As a marketer, SEO question, do they get linked back to their website in any capacity, or is that
Yes. So our goal is we have the link to their website on ours, and our goal is that they have the Secondhand Geek logo on their website so that their customers can click on it, and then through either, right now we have Facebook and Google that will auto-populate your customer profile form to get you started. And then hopefully it becomes standard for people to go, okay, this is not only my local gaming store, but they're an affiliated partnership with Secondhand Geek, so that, it becomes a line item for revenue for literally every game store owner, with that when they, are in business now, or somebody new looking to get and open a game store, they're like, all right, I've got my distributors, I got my lease, I got my employees, and I've got my account at Secondhand Geek. So that they could basically cover all their bases.
Cool. As as a marketer, I really very much appreciate the link back, because that's always an important thing. So I definitely recommend that people who are listening to this sign up, even if it's just for the extra SEO juice. That's a great way to start, and let your customers know that they should get on the platform, and then just start making some residual income on the activity that's already happening in your community anyways. Give them a good place to do it in a way that's fair and easy for them to use. So yeah, I really appreciate that. That's cool.
All right. Not a problem.
You have,
I will have you listed up there by the end of today.
Perfect. Cool. So do you have, before we wrap things up and again do the plug and all that stuff, do you have any advice? So you've been in the business forever, basically. You've seen this whole industry grow and develop. Store owners, I would imagine, we're some of them are struggling right now, right? Some of them are having a pretty tough time of not everything is playing out the way it used to. You can't rely on, or at least it feels like you can't rely on the major players, right? Magic, Games Workshop to some extent. Feels like almost every major product line, major category has some level of complaints to it right now. It's just not really doing what we want, right? For those store owners who are listening and feeling the pressure, what would you say to them? What kind of encouragement or advice would you give them right now?
So as far as, reaching out to their customer base, if you're an existing store owner, communicating with your customers is probably the biggest, asset that you're going to have. So that, the flow of information that you're getting from the people that you're buying the stuff from, whether it be, the OEMs like a Games Workshop or Magic the Gathering, or if it's through a distributor, that they are up to speed with, and delays in, getting shorted on quantities or anything like that. And in explaining to people, hey, if you pre-buy it, I may not have it on the exact release day, but maybe 3 or 4 days later. You're being patient a couple of days opposed to jumping on an eBay or jumping on an Amazon is the difference between us keeping the doors open and you having a place to play versus us not having a place to play. And I think in my experience over the last 25 years, if I'm upfront and I have those conversations with people want to help their stores survive. They want to help keep the doors open. Nobody that's playing at a store wants to see it shut down. And if it comes to pass that it does, I've heard people say in the past, well, if I had known better, if someone had told me, I would have tried to help. So, and you never know from your customer standpoint who has the ability to help you, who doesn't have the ability to help you. Trying to go and get a loan sometimes at your local bank is like pulling teeth and going to the dentist. Whereas you might have somebody that's gaming in your store that has the ability to help you out with, something in a short term, a 30, 60-day type of thing, or will pre-buy, inventory and stuff like that. So my biggest advice to people who have existing game stores, know your customer base, know what they're capable about, know what other resources and connections that they have that can help you be successful.
I like that. Look at them as allies. All right. So again, where can people go to find out more about Secondhand Geek?
Secondhand Geek.
Reach out to you.
You can reach me. It's Blake at secondhandgeek.com. And it goes directly to me. Our phone number is 864-420-4788 if they want to, jump on a phone call. And I can do, Microsoft Teams or Zoom. I do it on a daily basis with everything with Tax Titans. So.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to get a phone number from eBay. So, you're never going to be able to get hold of just like, I want to call up the owner of eBay and just have a chat with him right now and get him to answer my questions. So if you're listening, take advantage of that and you're interested, give Alan a chat and find out a little bit more about secondhandgeek.com. That's 2ND, not second spelled out.
Correct.
In case anyone's wondering. All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
All right, Thomas, I appreciate it. Now we'll get you listed up there, and hopefully we can have this conversation a year from now and learn all the different you've done for the game stores.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That sounds great. All right. Well, if you haven't already checked out secondhandgeek.com while you're listening to this podcast, go do that. And I will talk to everybody again in the next episode of the Manaverse Podcast.